Welcome to this explainer. Today we're decoding a deeply fascinating psychological paradox found in some of the most chaotic, stressful environments on Earth. We've all felt totally overwhelmed by the unpredictability of everyday life at some point, right? But today we're going to look at the incredible science behind how the human mind anchors itself when the world literally falls completely apart. So let's just dive right into it. Why on earth would anyone care about sweeping a floor or meticulous personal grooming or doing basic boring chores when bombs are literally falling around them? It sounds completely counterintuitive, doesn't it? When survival is on the line, why focus on the seemingly insignificant details of a daily schedule? Well, as it turns out, these mundane actions aren't trivial at all. They're actually profound, absolutely indispensable tools for psychological survival. Here is our agenda for today. We'll be covering chaos and the human mind, the psychology of the mundane, history from the trenches, mechanisms of resilience, cultivating order in chaos, and finally, the ethics of routine. Let's get going. Part 1. Chaos and the human mind, the macrocosm of unpredictability. To really understand the power of the ordinary, we first need to look at how our minds react to the extraordinary disruption of a battlefield. Look, the human mind is intrinsically wired by evolution to seek out patterns and order. Being able to anticipate changes in our environment, that gave our ancestors a huge survival advantage, but war violently tears that predictable fabric right apart. When our environments become completely unpredictable, our bodies get thrown into a state of intense, heightened alert. We get flooded with stress hormones, things like cortisol and adrenaline. And this isn't just a physical reaction. Psychologically, it severely diminishes our capacity for rational thought. Think about a time you felt totally trapped by circumstances, and now multiply that exponentially. The truly terrifying part is that this feeling of being overwhelmed by uncontrollable events can lead to a really dangerous psychological state called learned helplessness. Basically, it's a state where people start to believe their actions have absolutely zero effect on their environment, which leads to total passivity and rapid psychological deterioration.
Section 2. Psychology of the mundane, finding the micro.
So, how does the brain fight back against that overwhelming loss of control? Well, it all comes down to cognitive load theory. In high-stress environments, your cognitive resources are heavily taxed, just trying to process immediate terrifying threats. But by performing a simple automatic chore, like cleaning a weapon, prepping a standard ration, or marching in formation, the brain effectively saves mental bandwidth. Because these tasks require minimal cognitive effort, they essentially offload the burden. This gives the mind a structured activity which interrupts those spiraling thoughts of fear and reasserts a vital sense of agency. You're basically reminding the brain that, hey, you can still exert influence over at least one small aspect of your existence. And this perfectly illustrates the paradox. On the one hand, you have the overwhelming macro environment, existential threats, extreme stress, total loss of familiar structure. It's just way too big to control. But you counter it by establishing tiny, controllable micro-domains of predictability. Making a bed, preparing a meal, meticulously cleaning a rifle isn't just about battlefield readiness. It's actually a tactile, tangible act of care that compartmentalizes the overwhelming reality of constant danger. It is a brilliant psychological defense.
Moving on to Section 3. History from the trenches, routine across eras.
Let's look at the historical record to see how this psychological anchor has been utilized across different eras of modern conflict. From the static, incredibly deadly trenches of World War I to the present day, mundane schedules have consistently been the absolute bedrock of prolonged psychological survival. Think back to the 1910s. Trench life was often measured in hours, not days. Yet, soldiers meticulously maintained daily allocations of sentry duty and trench maintenance just to hold on to their sanity. Jump forward to the 1940s, and we see prisoners of war in WWI utilizing this exact same tool. Even when stripped of all autonomy, POWs organized makeshift daily schedules. We're talking designated times for exercise, shared meals, even simulated educational programs. This was a profound survival strategy to resist total psychological subjugation. And today, modern military training uses repetitive drills so that the routine becomes an internalized structure, one that can withstand external chaos. A soldier executes a drill under fire not just from muscle memory, but because they have imposed order on their own internal chaos.
Part 4. Mechanisms of resilience, the 5 pillars.
Okay, so the crucial point here is understanding exactly how these boring chores transform into psychological armor. How does that actually happen? Well, first, they mitigate stress by buffering anxiety and acting as a mindful distraction.
It essentially signals to the brain that not every single moment is a life or death crisis. Second, they reassert control, providing a tangible sense of agency that directly combats that learned helplessness we discussed a minute ago. Furthermore, these repetitive tasks offer cognitive enhancement. They reduce the tunnel vision caused by constant threat assessment and help restore mental equilibrium. We also see tremendous social cohesion. Shared chores and meals foster strong collective identity, helping individuals realize they aren't alone in the struggle. And finally, by maintaining functional capacity during the trauma, these routines enable a pathway for post-traumatic growth, which helps people process the experience much more effectively once the threat has finally subsided. So maintaining a routine isn't just about rigid discipline. It's a profound, scientifically backed coping mechanism.
Section 5. Cultivating order in chaos. Building the routine.
Now, it's important to note that this kind of psychological resilience doesn't just happen by accident. It requires deliberate, step-by-step cultivation by both individuals and institutions. Whether we're talking about a military commander enforcing hygiene standards or a civilian family caught in the crossfire of a conflict, the routine has to be actively built. In the military, of course, this starts with rigorous training and is sustained by leadership reinforcement, commanders who prioritize basic living standards and very consistent schedules. But this absolutely isn't limited to soldiers. For non-combatants who lack pre-existing structures, self-organization is incredibly vital. We've seen families doing the unimaginable, establishing strict meal and bedtimes for children amidst active shelling, or communities organizing shared, specific times for water collection. It provides a crucial sense of collective stability when the outside world is quite literally falling apart. But we have to mention a vital caveat here. Adaptability is critical. Rigid adherence to impossible routines can actually backfire on you. If a specific action is no longer feasible because the environment has shifted, you absolutely must be able to adapt. True survival requires creative problem solving, finding new ways to maintain order while keeping the underlying spirit of predictability alive. At the end of the day, the routine has to serve the human, not the other way around.
And our final section, part 6, the ethics of routine. Humanity versus the machine.
Let's zoom back out for a second and look at the profound ethical tension hidden within this heavy reliance on military routine. We really have to ask ourselves, are routines implemented with a genuine concern for psychological well-being, or are they sometimes just tools used to suppress dissent? See, routine can be a beautiful testament to genuine human resilience. It empowers individuals, it helps them cope with horrible trauma, and it preserves their dignity. But it definitely has a darker side. Routine can absolutely be exploited to enhance blind obedience, suppress critical thought, and essentially turn humans into interchangeable cogs in a larger war machine. The difference lies entirely in the intentionality and the framing of how the routine is implemented in the first place. Which brings us to a genuinely fascinating philosophical perspective. Thinkers like Albert Camus extensively explored the concept of the absurd. And if you think about it, war is the ultimate manifestation of meaninglessness. Therefore, as existentialist philosophy suggests, making a bed in a war zone is the ultimate act of rebellion against the meaningless absurdity of war. It is a profound, quiet statement that even within the confines of total destruction, a life can still be lived and human order can still be beautifully, defiantly imposed. I want to leave you with this provocative thought to ponder. The simple act of sweeping a floor or doing a daily chore under extreme stress is far, far more than just a habit. It's literally the very architecture of sanity. But it walks a razor-thin line between preserving our humanity and programming our obedience. So, what do you think? Is the military routine a triumph of individual human resilience, or is it the ultimate tool of control? Thank you so much for joining this explainer, and keep questioning the ordinary around you.